When the sky above Tel Aviv no longer holds stars but missiles, what dreams can survive the night? It began with silence, the kind of stillness that deceives. Families gathered for dinner. Children chased shadows in the hallway. Then came the sirens, a piercing scream against the hush of routine. Moments later, streaks of fire cut through the darkness, ballistic trajectories glowing like comets, but with no wish to grant. Iran's newest generation of missiles, rumored to carry multiple maneuverable warheads, slipped past radar like whispers of doom. The Iron Dome, once Israel's steel guardian, faltered, overwhelmed, exposed. And Tel Aviv, the vibrant, humming symbol of Israeli modernity, trembled, not just in concrete and glass, but in spirit. Buildings cracked, power grids sparked, airports closed. And amidst the smog and sirens, one name echoed with uncertainty: Netanyahu, the strong man, the lion, now a figure portrayed by critics and allies alike as a leader whose capital had slipped from his grip. This isn't just war, it's psychological siege, broadcast in real time. A nation's lungs are not only choking on smoke, but on the weight of vulnerability. And in that moment, the world must ask, is this the beginning of the fall, or the birth of a new reckoning? War is not declared by words anymore, but by synchronized trajectories, encrypted commands, and digital silences before explosions. Israel began the fire with Operation Rising Lion. It was swift, brutal, calculated. A massive aerial campaign targeting deep within Iran's defense architecture, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. These were not symbolic sites. They were the heartbeats of Iran's nuclear program, buried under mountains, encased in concrete, and thought impenetrable. But American bunker-buster munitions, delivered by stealth aircraft, proved otherwise. It was a military statement. We will not wait for you to go nuclear. But Iran was listening, and Iran remembered. Less than 48 hours later, Operation True Promise 3 began, not in haste, but in mathematical precision. More than 20 waves of ballistic missiles and suicide drones ripped through Israeli airspace. Kamikaze drones hit Haifa's ports. Hypersonic ballistic missiles, maneuvering in terminal phase, overwhelmed Iron Dome batteries in Ashkelon and Tel Aviv. But these weren't just strikes. They were surgical narratives. The targeting of Ben Gurion Airport was a message: we can cut your veins. The hit on the Biological Research Center said, we know what you're hiding. And the blackouts that followed were an eerie whisper: we can make your nights longer than your days. This is no longer a war of territory. It is a war of paralysis, of perception, and of who blinks first when the sky starts to bleed. War isn't just fought with missiles. It's waged in living rooms, beneath fluorescent lights flickering with panic, and in the tremor of hands dialing loved ones for the last time. In Israel, the psychological front collapsed faster than expected. Tel Aviv, the symbol of modern security and technological prowess, now breathes in sync with air raid sirens. Schools were closed, but paradoxically, some synagogues were forced to stay open, rumored to act as human shields over adjacent military structures. The Iron Dome, once regarded as invincible, began to miss. And every missed interception wasn't just a tactical failure. It was a psychological breach. Parents dug trenches in their gardens. Supermarkets emptied. Hospitals overflowed. News anchors whispered rather than spoke. And amidst it all, a question hung heavy. If the state cannot protect its center, what else can fall? In Iran, it was no less turbulent, but different. Streets in Tehran turned ghost-like. Hospitals in Karaj burst with injured civilians. Yet amidst devastation, a strange duality emerged. Grief mixed with dark pride. We struck Tel Aviv. But others whispered dissent. Secret telegram groups flooded with images of burning homes and the question, was it worth it? A video leaked from Tehran. An old man holds a candle in the blackout, muttering, "We survived Saddam, now we survive ourselves." PSYOPs aren't only leaflets and broadcasts anymore. They are the unlit corridor, the empty bottle of insulin, the child who asks why the stars don't come out anymore. Because the true cost of war isn't only in lives lost, it's in the certainty lost. The quiet knowledge that nowhere is truly safe anymore. War has rules, but vengeance doesn't. And Iran's retaliation wasn't just about hitting back. It was about choosing what to hit, when, and how to inflict maximum disruption on Israel's daily life. The 20th and 21st waves of Iranian missile strikes redefined the playbook. For the first time, Israel's core infrastructure, not its military, became the main target. Ben Gurion Airport, the gateway to and from the nation, went dark. Flights were suspended, runways cratered. The air above Tel Aviv grew silent, not from peace, but from paralysis. Then came Ashkelon's power plant, a clean shot. Transformers exploded, triggering massive blackouts from the southern coast up to parts of Tel Aviv. The sea was still, but the cities glowed no more. Kamikaze drones, small, fast, terrifying, targeted Haifa's seaports and oil terminals. One drone, loaded with metal pellets, detonated just outside a desalination plant, threatening Israel's water supply. It wasn't random. It was symbolic sabotage. Food, power, water, the trinity of modern survival. And perhaps most chilling, the strike on the Israeli Institute for Biological Research, a facility whispered to be involved in dual-use chemical and biological programs. Iran's spokesman didn't mince words. This was not a guess, it was a message. This is no longer about military balance. This is existential targeting, where hospitals, airports, and electric grids are not collateral damage, but deliberate aims. It's not about who can conquer more land. It's about who can turn off the lights, cut the water, halt the breathing rhythms of civilian life. Welcome to 21st century warfare, where striking the soul of a city is more devastating than breaching its borders. War counts bodies, but it rarely counts broken lives. In Iran, more than 900 civilians have been confirmed dead since the first wave of Israeli airstrikes. But beyond the statistics are the stories. Children pulled from collapsed classrooms in Karaj, a maternity ward in Isfahan obliterated mid-delivery, a mother shielding her baby with her body beneath a crumbling stairwell in Tehran. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Medicine is scarce. Blood banks are dry. And in the villages of northern Iran, thousands have fled, not evacuated, but scattered into mountains, valleys, and abandoned barns with no food, no aid, and no voice. A viral image on Iranian social media shows a handwritten sign at the entrance of a destroyed clinic. We ran out of antibiotics. We still have prayers. In Israel, the casualty numbers are lower, just under 40 dead. But the trauma is everywhere. Sirens sound every 20 minutes in Tel Aviv. Civilians sleep in stairwells, not beds. Schools function as emergency bunkers. Hospitals move neonatal wards underground. Most disturbing, multiple reports allege that Israeli authorities redirected missiles toward residential districts. Not because of error, but to deflect fire from military installations. Synagogues, daycares, community centers turned into living shields. A survivor whispered to reporters, "I wasn't scared of the bomb. I was scared that we had become part of the war strategy." And that's the truth of modern warfare. It does not just kill. It transforms innocence into armor, neighborhoods into negotiation chips, and grief into geopolitics. What's worse than death in war? Becoming invisible in it. When missiles fly over Tel Aviv, shockwaves reach not only Tehran, but also Moscow, Beijing, Washington, and Pyongyang. Just hours after the U.S. airstrikes on Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, Russia's President Vladimir Putin released a chilling statement. This is no longer a regional issue. This is a step toward the irreversible. The Kremlin has since activated strategic command drills in Kaliningrad and deployed reconnaissance assets to the Mediterranean. Moscow, while publicly calling for a ceasefire, has quietly resumed arms shipments to Syria and Lebanon, a veiled warning to Israel. China, on the other hand, condemned the U.S. action as a violation of sovereignty and a threat to global energy stability. Beijing moved swiftly, releasing 1 million barrels from its oil reserves and beginning naval patrols near the Strait of Hormuz. North Korea issued its strongest condemnation yet. State media labeled the U.S.-Israeli operations as a horrific act of nuclear terrorism, and satellite imagery suggests possible missile tests were prepped in Sinsunni within days. But perhaps the most unexpected player, India, who maintained silence for weeks, just suspended all military technology exports to Israel, citing regional destabilization. It signals a crack even among traditional allies. In Europe, the EU is fractured. France has called for de-escalation, while Poland and the Czech Republic prepare border contingency plans. NATO's Secretary General Stoltenberg cautiously referred to it as a critical point in alliance diplomacy. Behind closed doors, energy futures traders are panicking. The Strait of Hormuz, now partially paralyzed by Iran's GPS spoofing, threatens 20% of the world's oil supply. The message is clear. This is no longer Iran versus Israel. It is bloc versus bloc, east versus west, civilization versus consequence. Ceasefires aren't always peace. Sometimes they're just intermissions in a tragedy still being written. On June 30, as Israel and Iran exchanged messages through neutral channels in Oman, former U.S. President Donald Trump appeared unexpectedly on Fox News, declaring, "A deal has been struck. The war is over. Peace is coming." But in the streets of Tel Aviv, sirens still scream. And in Iran's airspace, satellite surveillance shows ballistic missile batteries still hot, mobile, and waiting. Far from the battlefield, Iran has activated a new kind of front. Not kinetic, but cyber-electronic. Since July 1st, over 1,200 commercial vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz have reported GPS anomalies, ships veering off course, tankers nearly colliding. This tactic, once pioneered by Houthi rebels, is now weaponized by Iran. We don't need to block the strait. We'll just erase it digitally. Meanwhile, the IAEA has officially been expelled from all nuclear sites in Iran. No inspectors, no reports. The cameras turned off, the doors sealed. No one knows now how far Iran's nuclear program has advanced or where. The skies have quieted, but it is a deceptive silence. Intelligence reports warn of a new Iranian weapons test in the Lut Desert. Israeli submarines have repositioned in the Red Sea. U.S. satellites monitor new Iranian construction in Iraq and Bushehr. And as the world holds its breath, one whispered truth becomes undeniable. This is not peace. This is the eye of the hurricane. So, we ask again, what price must be paid for deterrence? How many more cities must go dark before someone calls it what it is? A global war? Comment below if you believe the truth is being buried. Subscribe to follow this frontline analysis, because the next chapter will be darker still.